All rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This meeting is being recorded and live streamed through the Limerick Township YouTube page. First order of business is consideration of minutes from the April 9th meeting. Do I have a motion?
So approved.
I'll second. All in favor? Vote aye.
Aye.
I abstain. Abstain. Yeah. Okay, moving on to subdivision and land development. We have LD 2603 Lot 7 Industrial Parkway.
Evening. My name is Joel Commanda. I'm with Inland Design, here to represent Cheska Real Estates in this land development. This is located on the east side of Industrial Parkway and currently a vacant lot. Proposed development is 36 contractor size storage units. As you can see, it's laid out in sort of 3 long rows with a looping access drive accessing each unit. There's also going to be
So can you put your mic closer to you?
Is that better? All right. There will also be a parking space in front of each unit, also used as sort of a loading area. The site is not going to be staffed in any way, and there are no proposed water or sewer utilities as a part of this application. There were 4 waivers as a part of the application, and based on the review letters that we have, we're going to be adding a couple additional waiver requests. So I'll go over those now, and then I can answer any questions on the review letters. The first waiver is from section 151.26A9C, which is requesting that the internal side slopes on the basin be allowed to be steeper than 5:1. And this was to save additional trees. The basin is located at the rear of the site. There's an attempt to minimize the area that's disturbed for that basin. The second waiver request is section 151.26B2C, and that is a request to allow pipe size less than 18 inches in diameter. Based on the pipe calculations, a 15-inch diameter pipe is adequate to carry the capacity of the stormwater there. The third waiver request is slightly modified from what was originally submitted. It was at 155.15B4. Instead, it will now be 155.15B8, sections B and D. And this is a waiver to request that there be no widening or curb or sidewalk along Industrial Parkway along this property. There is no curbing or sidewalk along the entire road. That's industrial road with industrial uses. And so we're requesting a waiver from those sections. The next waiver is section 155.27.1C4A, which is to allow the landscape buffers along the eastern and western boundaries of the site, which are the 2 sides. to be reduced to 12 feet. This matches the parking setback in the ordinance. And again, there are industrial uses, an existing industrial use along the eastern side and a lot that is proposed for industrial use along the western side. The next, and then I have the two additional waiver requests. First one is section 155.27.2A, which is a request to allow the basin floor to be have stone instead of it being seeded. And this was based on a conversation we had with the Montgomery County Conservation District. It was their recommendation, since this was an industrial site, commercial industrial site, and they have seen a lot of difficulty in getting wet basins to maintain a seed and be stabilized. They recommended that for purposes of stabilization and long-term maintenance, that we use stone along the bottom. I did discuss this with Benoni, and they were amenable to us requesting that waiver. The final one is section 155.33C1, and this is a waiver request to allow the aerial photograph that's shown on the cover sheet of the plans to be used to show the existing features within 400 feet of the subject parcel. This was based off comment 14 in the Benoni letter. Was suggested as that as a waiver. So those are the waivers that are being requested. We do have, as I mentioned, review letters from both Benoni and TPV and a comment letter from the fire marshal. And we will comply with all the comments in those letters, with the exceptions of the waivers that we're requesting. And I will go through those item by item, but I'm happy to answer any questions, specific questions you guys may have based on those letters or anything else.
Will there be any outdoor storage as part of this project?
No, there will be no outdoor storage, and that is being clarified in a note on the plans.
You said contractor size. What size are these units?
Each unit is 18 wide, 30 feet deep.
What is the standard?
I don't know if there's a standard size. You know, there's a variety of sizes. You know, they go down as small as like a 6x12. You know, for more commercial, residential, need an extra garage size. But the concept of these is, you know, someone who needs a larger space for storing their equipment, their trailer maybe, or their or some of the possibly supplies for a work thing. Come up, load up in the morning, and go out. No work would be taking place on the site.
I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about the need for more storage facilities of this type of township. I don't know the proportion of sort of the residential size versus commercial size. What is telling you that we actually need more of this size?
I'll be honest, that's not something I can speak to. I don't know if you guys would like to. The applicant is here.
Is this on? Sorry, I'm Steve Clifton with the ownership group Chesco Real Estate. There's a need for this. I mean, it's not just contractors. It would be small businesses, hobbyists for cars, motorcycles, small RVs. What you find in the self-storage facilities is that the largest unit you can usually get there is a 10x20. So these would be larger than that. You don't necessarily have to divide it down either. If you wanted to take two of them, we wouldn't have to put a divising wall up. So if you're a plumber, you know, any sort of contractor that's working from home, these units would be sufficient for you where you can't afford flex space that starts at 2,500 square feet.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Gentlemen, so this wouldn't be serviced by sewer or water?
No, sir.
And there's no one? Because he did, thank you.
Yeah.
And no office building there?
No, sir.
So how do the renters access it?
It would be, there'd be a number there that they could call us. They could do it online. I mean, everything now can be done right from the cell phone. So they could rent the unit. I mean, it's pretty tech forward.
Okay. Good. Obviously, you'd have cameras everywhere.
Oh, of course, yeah,
Uh,
cameras, security.
Possibility of legal dumping on the site.
You-
Nobody's.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, I mean, obviously, from a landowner perspective, we don't want that, so we're gonna do everything that we can to prevent that, and then, of course, for the tenants that are on site, I mean, that's gonna be a demand of theirs, that the site is secure.
So you're asking for a waiver for the reduced buffers along the boundaries here? On the western side,
Eastern and western.
eastern
side.
and western side?
Correct.
Okay, down to 12 feet?
That's correct.
What is on each side of the other side of those boundaries?
To the east, which is the top of this page,
Right.
there is an existing, actually, I don't know what business it is, but it's it's a commercial business, bunch of vans. I think it might be auto repair.
Yeah, there's auto repair on the one side, and the other side, it just switched uses, but it is an industrial use, as you get closer to the cul-de-sac.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
You currently operate any of these facilities in the area?
No, we have smaller garages throughout Chester County, and honestly, that's where we saw, the need for this. I mean, out in the Midwest and down south, this use is pretty common. It's just something that, for whatever reason, hasn't taken off around here. But Brian and I are contractors ourselves, so we've seen the need for, this type of space with the tradespeople that we hire, whether it's the plumber, the electrician, the roofer, and then obviously, the hobbyists, the car guys that are looking for space.
So if somebody was going to rent one of these spaces, do they have to sign a waiver about like hazardous
Oh,
materials?
of course. Yeah, it would all be part of the lease. Yeah.
Is there anything, you don't have a lease with you, do you?
I don't know, but it would be like a standard self-storage facility lease. I mean, they all have that waiver.
Any
there that they
restrictions on
sign.
batteries or things of that nature that might be hazardous over time?
Of course, yeah, there wouldn't be anything like that stored in there. And our insurance would prevent us from having it as well.
Gentlemen, where is the basin that you want a waiver from for the stone instead of the seed?
It is, sort of see the curved contour lines on the right-hand side of the page here that I'm circling. That's the outline of the basin. So there's an area here between that basin and the back of the self-storage that's not being disturbed. And we're trying to preserve trees both in that area and at the sort of southeast corner of the site. Obviously, the steeper, or the less steep we make the basin, the bigger the footprint it has to take up.
Right.
So that's the reason for that.
And Montgomery, who recommended that you put stone instead of seed there?
It was the Montgomery County Conservation District.
Okay.
Yeah, this is a project that disturbs more than 1 acre, so we will have an NPDES permit as a part of this project. So we had a pre-application meeting with them, and that was one of their recommendations as a part of that meeting.
Okay. Thank you, Joel.
So I know this is an industrial area, but is this the 24-hour day operation or the hours limited at all?
To be honest with you, it would probably, for our preference, would not be 24 hours. But we really haven't discussed that internally.
Cal, you can attest to that, the change from stone as opposed to seeded, that's not an issue from our stance.
Yeah, it's not an issue. The stone base is not an issue. And we will be copied on communications with the Montgomery County Conservation District. We also don't have an issue with the proposed slopes within the basin. As the gentleman mentioned, the shallower you go, the bigger the footprint. The steeper you go, the smaller footprint. But from a functionality, conveyance, and stormwater design, it doesn't take away anything. It will still comply fully.
Okay.
With requirements.
Well, thank you. Do we have any public comments? Seeing none, any additional planning commission comments?
Make a motion. Recommend to the board to supervise approval. Yeah.
Without the additional conditions?
Yeah, approve the waiver requests.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Then I-
That's correct.
and I would second that. All in favor? Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, next up on the agenda is LD 26041 Penn Road.
Good evening, everybody. This is a small project. I want to move part of my business down to this lot. Went to the zoning hearing board, got some waivers with provisions which were acceptable. Unfortunately, my engineer wasn't able to get the plan in quick enough for the plan that you guys are seeing, but we're able to meet all Pannoni's recommendations and changes and TPD. There are no waivers. Two deferrals. Two deferrals are sidewalk and widening of the road. Happy to answer any questions.
Cal, we're caught up with all the additional work that they needed to bring in.
Could you repeat your question?
Well, is there some outstanding paperwork that they needed to bring in? We're all good?
Yeah, so we have been communicating with Lucky Engineer, who is the design engineer on this project. And I confirm that Lucky is making, I believe, as of sometime today, he had completed all the revisions that were needed. We wanted to make sure, it's just a little bit, if I could, by way of history, the project had gone to the zoning hearing board and they had obtained, I believe, 8 different variances with conditions. There were a total of 4 conditions. One is we're making sure we're working with Ken's consultant on making sure that all these zoning hearing conditions are shown on the plan. Any and all waivers / deferrals, which in this case, I believe he is asking for a few deferrals. I can go through them with you now. Also are shown on the plan. We had worked with him on the outside outdoor storage. The code requires X percentage. I believe it is 45%. And they're showing that area to be 45%. We work with them along with the fire marshal on internal circulations to make sure that if there's a fire and nothing goes in and damage is inflicted there. But to quickly go through some of the deferrals, Mr. Spurn is asking for a deferral as part of this project from section 155.15B2 and 6. This is for parkway improvements along Bridge Pike and Penn. If I may add, deferral does not mean he doesn't have to do it. Deferral means it will be deferred until such time when the township notifies the property owner to say you have 5 months, 6 months, complete the improvements, and they have to complete. So this is as it relates to the cartway. The next one will be from curb along the roadways, obviously as part of the improvement. There are street trees other than landscaping. He is asking for a waiver. It goes in tandem because if you look at the zoning hearing decisions, it says you provide X number of streetscape and buffering and screening. So we're making sure he complies with this. Sometimes it conflicts with what the land development or subdivision land development code requires. He is asking for only a partial waiver on that. And then the last one, I'm not sure if I mentioned it, this is from a landscaping plan to be submitted. Sometimes codes will require that a plan submitted by a professional landscape architect. In this case, he doesn't believe that it is needed, but will show the required.
Thank you, Cal.
Thank you.
And Kevin, what will you be doing with this new project?
Was that?
What will you be doing with it? The new project is
It's going to be my tow yard.
okay.
You're not gonna have any lighting down there?
Was that?
Not gonna have any lighting down there?
Any lighting? I'm not proposing any at this time.
You get enough residual light down there?
What's that?
If you have to bring in a rec after hours, and
There's enough light from Sylvie. I can see what I'm doing.
it's pretty bright.
Sylvie's lit up like a ballpark.
If the project proposes lighting in the future, then it would have to come from the township for approval to make sure that requirements, as in cut off by the property line, the direction of the light, intensity, what have you, everything is applies.
I own the house that's right there too, so there's enough light coming off the house. So between Sylvie and the street light and all that corner's lit up pretty well.
Have any public comment? Seeing none, any additional planning commission comments? I'll make a motion to recommend the board approve project with the following conditions: that all conditions and deferrals be reflected on the plan and contingent on compliance with all consultant review letters. All in favor?
In favor.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, we have conditional use CU 26-02442 North Lewis Road LLC. Good evening.
Good evening. Julie Bernstein with Kaplan Stewart. We were just recently retained to represent the applicant in connection with their conditional use application. I believe you may have heard about it a bit before, but they're seeking to utilize their property at 442 North Lewis Road as a veterinary office. Just to orient everyone, I put on first page just a illustrative aerial from Google. This is the property that's located on the east side of North Lewis Road. It's just south of the Scoop DeVille ice cream parlor, across the street from the Chesterbrook Academy preschool. Fred, are you the one? That's thank you. Can you go to thanks. So this is kind of existing conditions plan. So the property is comprised of approximately 1.79 acres. It's presently improved with a building that most recently had been used as a florist. There's a residential dwelling and barn or garage building of sorts and some small sheds on the property. The improvements take access currently off of North Lewis Road via 2 full movement driveways, and there's parking for 8 cars that's provided on the north side of the property line. The 2 existing driveways, they connect on site in kind of a U shape, and then they also provide shared access to the Scoop DeVille. The property is currently vacant and is not in use. It is located in the R3 medium density zoning district and the Lewis Road conditional use overlay district. The owners and applicants, who are also the owners of Main Street Vet, plan to demolish the existing structures on site and improve the property with a professional veterinary office building and parking, 38 spaces for that veterinary office, along with new landscaping and associated improvements. This new plan removes the secondary driveway that was on the kind of northern side and provides for 1 driveway access to the site, which will still connect to the Scoop DeVille to the north, as was confirmed by Greta to the applicants when they were first pursuing this project. Professional offices, which include a veterinary office, are permitted in this district by conditional use, which is why we have submitted this application, provided the office is up to or less than 20,000 square feet. And what's proposed here is 5,200 square feet. So below that threshold. And then just quickly before getting into the technical details of the conditional use, just as an overview, Main Street Vet is a locally run business. They have a couple other locations in the area. The owners, Frank and Kim DeMayo, are here with me tonight, and they actually live here in Limerick and are looking to open up another location here, which is what they're proposing. Their office is open kind of regular business hours, Monday to Friday. So similar to the other locations would be Monday and Friday from 8 to 4, and Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday from 8 to 6. While their vets really kind of take care of their patients, so might respond to an emergency call on occasion. This is not kind of that urgent care style of vet or hospital style care. It's more of the traditional style of veterinary office where you go during the day, make an appointment to get your dog checked. There's no dog boarding services being proposed. They would plan on this site to have 2 full-time vets at the location and approximately 6 employees. And this plan does comply with all of the objective criteria, or their plans for the property do, as are like all, as I mentioned, it's located in the appropriate district, that overlay. It's going to be served by public sewer and water, which is required. Pedestrian bicycle facilities would be provided unless the Board of Supervisors decided otherwise. My client is currently working with professionals on a landscaping plan. There's plenty of space, as you can see, on the property to provide for adequate kind of buffering, streetscape, street trees. They don't intend to kind of seek any waivers from the requirements that are in the SALTO. They're working on it now, and the goal would be that we'll present that at the conditional use hearing. Similarly, they're currently working on finalizing their architectural drawings for the property, but the idea here is that the house or the building for the vet would look relatively similar to Scoop DeVille. It's right to the north, so they really kind of align with each other. It's like a nice feel as you drive the road. The application had been reviewed by Pannoni already, and as was set forth in the letter, the plan as that was submitted did largely comply with all of the bulk and area dimensional requirements. It was pointed out that the dumpster in the initial plan, which is this one that we're showing here, was within 75 feet of a residential district. So you could switch to the next sheet. We did a quick sketch plan. We moved the dumpster. It's going to be kind of in the north, where Greta's kind of circling that area. It's in the northeast corner, and it's angled slightly so that truck could kind of pull in, go around, and very kind of easily access the garbage, so they could utilize that shared driveway up to the Scoop DeVille and get back out. So it provides for nice kind of circulation there. And again, the landscaping plan would buffer this whole thing out as required. And I think that was also kind of commented for us to explain whether this was adequate parking. It's 7 spaces per vet plus 1 space per employee. So I think what they're showing right now is 38 spaces, which is significantly in excess of what would be required, but would, in the event this is really successful, they added another vet, still plenty of parking here at the site. So there were 3 vets in the future. It's not their plan, just pointing it out. And then finally, they did, after their initial application, supplement it with a full detailed traffic study that was prepared by Bowman and had been reviewed. I just wanted to raise a couple of the comments. One, I wanted to make clear that Scoop DeVille is fine with this. They are working really well with the owners, my clients. They're willing to provide the easement if that was necessary. So they have a really good rapport, and there's no concern there. Then second, we're working on truck turning plans, and we'll submit that. But I thought I'd just explain, and as you can kind of easily see, I'm not an expert, but this provides for kind of a nice circular access for trucks, and we'll confirm that as we move forward. And then Finally, there was kind of a comment, the Lewis Road overlay does encourage these shared driveways. As I noted, this property initially had 2 driveways on it, so they have removed one. They do want to have one driveway access so that there's, a proper way of getting in. It also really helps with the circulation. TPD had responded and suggested that potentially providing a right in, right out. This is state road, so they're going to need to get an HOP. So they're going to have to work through that process. Again, we're conditional use, so really early zoning now. So I would ask that we don't put conditions like that on at this time, as this is going to go through kind of this process with PennDOT, and PennDOT is really going to dictate what's required and what would be necessary for safety, for site distance, and all those types of things. But really, that's kind of the scope of the project. It's a vet, it's one office building. I did include it, it's the old plan, but they had an older rendered plan. It's a really green site, can't really quite see it. It's like, it's all wooded in the back, the last sheet. That doesn't show what the landscaping will be, and it's an older plan, it's not the current one, but you can tell it's really going to be a greened up site as they move forward. It'll look nice, provide a great service.
I have a question. You may be answered this, but I just want to make sure I'm clear. For the type of veterinary practices that this is it going to be the one where the doctors who are practicing there own the practice? Or is it going to be more like a corporate understanding? It sounds like it's a small corporate, where they hire people in. Huh?
One of the biggest problems we have in veterinary medicine right now is corporations buying practices. Absolutely not.
So you're a doctor-owned practice? Okay. Okay, well, okay, then I don't have any more questions. Okay, I'm happy with that.
Kim is a vet.
I'm happy with that answer. Okay.
Hey, Julie, the open space in the back, the green looks great there. All the trees back there, it looks fantastic. So guys, right now, your only access would be the driveway that you would share with Scoop DeVille?
So
you see that second driveway there too?
So you can see this is relatively similar enough.
Right.
So they have access to this driveway,
right,
and then they can go kind of through,
okay,
turn left, and then they would have access, shared easement access to the driveway that's fully on the Scoop DeVille property.
Okay.
There. So it creates, that circular movement all around that building. Again, we're pretty early in the process, but if we removed that, the circulation would obviously become more difficult potentially for.
If you just have the one entrance, right? Okay.
That west is a long-term fire plan. I should prepare for 2 hours. So we've had a relationship, and we're moving to work together. He wants to have always.
Okay. And everything behind that parking lot will stay trees and green? Okay. Thank you.
How far apart are those 2 driveways?
It is precise. It is less than the 200 feet, which is why the restriction was suggested by TPD. Again, it would be further looked at, well, fully looked at by PennDOT, and it's possible that they would require right in, right out. They're not opposed to it. My request would be that we kind of defer that evaluation because we are at a conditional use phase. This hasn't been, fully engineered through the subdivision land development phase. They haven't kind of gone through the whole, scoping process with PennDOT. So to restrict it now before we get all of that feedback, we feel like it's early, but we're open to it. If that was needed or necessary, that would be possible.
What's the direction of the orientation of the building? Where would they enter?
Yeah. So like where it says 38 parking spaces?
No.
Oh.
Yeah, we believe the front door is going to be like right in this corner facing to the south.
Do you intend to put in a standalone sign out front, or would it be on the facade of the building?
That's not, we haven't shown a freestanding sign yet, but I would anticipate during land development, they would add a freestanding sign.
In between the two driveways?
There's one there now. It's a heading sign right now. It's been on existing property. It's in the same location. I've not taken that house part of the property.
The one that says like sold now on the front for the old piece in the pot, or?
Sign that the business had previously, I guess it was florist.
Was the,
Is- Yeah, Rofo Natural, I think it was like that.
But as part of this application, there is no signage or anything. Signage that would have to go to zoning as a standalone separate application. Not land development, not conditional use, a whole separate application.
They'll probably work to try to comply with the ordinance, and obviously if they can't, then that would be the alternate option.
Is there a sidewalk along Woodford in that area?
Yes, there's an existing sidewalk right now.
And you guys would have no boarding of dogs overnight, or they would just,
no, we send all our surgeries.
okay. Okay.
I'm sorry. No.
There's no indication.
So we do surgery, both send them the same thing. You know, needs to go over next time recently, and that has.
Any public comments?
I don't see a detention basin on the plan.
You come on up to the microphone, please.
Well, Rick Fiddler, Limerick resident. I don't see a detention basin, and I don't see any room for one.
The conditional use plan doesn't show a stormwater basin, but there will have to be a stormwater facility provided as part of the land development.
I understand that, but I mean, looking at that, it looks very nice, but somewhere you're gonna have to put a detention basin that's gonna probably take a lot of those trees away, right?
Right, we will have to remove trees to put in a stormwater facility.
Okay.
Any other public comment?
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, absolutely. And the only reason we want to use the microphone mainly is because when we're on YouTube, people might not be able to hear what you're saying.
I don't know how many acres that is, but it's half of the site is trees. Green space. Why do you need a stormwater basin? Like I see the trend in the you know, in this area to not have the old fashioned stormwater basins, but the ones that have, it almost looks like you built it up with stone and put something on top and planted trees. Like there's one by the Citadel Credit Union that's already been done between the Giant and the credit union. But if you already have trees growing there on half of the lot, I don't understand why you would destroy that green space to create a stormwater basin when you have a naturally occurring one. Just curious.
Name for the minutes.
Martha Bell, Limerick resident.
Thank you.
Would you like me to answer that question?
Yeah, absolutely.
That is not, I mean, I understand the approach. However, stormwater management doesn't necessarily work that way. When you have heavy storm events, such as the one we had yesterday, I know where I live, we had one. If the stormwater is not addressed properly, taken back into the ground, recharge the ground, it will cause erosion, it will cause issues, and it's not really how it works. You need to take it and redirect it back into the, go back. Otherwise, you're gonna have erosion, you're gonna have issues, trees will probably fall down from the intensity of the storm. Thank you.
Thank you, Cal. Any other public comments? Any additional planning commission comments?
Is there a motion?
I don't know. I mean, to me personally, it feels a little incomplete.
Or does not have?
So stormwater really is deferred to this. It's not part of this particular application. We will be back for all of those issues during land development. I do understand that we didn't come with a landscaping plan, but we do have adequate space, and at the conditional use, technically, if I want to be very legal, you can't require all of those things at this stage, but we are going to do it and present it. We'll be back through here for full land development, and
So but the other outstanding issue is whether it's one driveway or two, whether that can be a condition for BOS approval versus making that again a condition.
Right.
It's a question for my colleague to the left. I don't have a concern still.
So, and PennDOT will determine that with the driveway?
yeah, they will, and we do have to come back through land development as well. So
You have a timeline for that?
I think that they want to move quickly. So I think their goal is that we go to the conditional use hearing. Optimistically, I believe we'll check off every single box at the hearing. So like the landscaping plan will show, and then we'll come back here. Ideally, optimistically, that they grant it with a plan relatively quickly. I think they're very excited to open up.
Maybe I can do it this way. I would make a motion to recommend BOS consider the use with conditions of presentation of the PennDOT approved plan for driveway management and for stormwater.
I think that may not be able to happen in the timeline. Like, I think that doesn't happen maybe till you wouldn't do that until after the conditional use.
Yeah, we would do that after conditional use. So that would be, something that because the idea here is that obviously we're optimistic, and I'm optimistic that you guys aren't offended by a veterinary office, which is permitted by conditional use. But if we don't have the zoning to do this use, for them to kind of move forward with that extensive kind of engineering process and scoping process doesn't make sense.
So, and you would all be able to, if you wanted to, they would have the information when they're doing land development, and if that was a condition that you all felt needed to add or recommend during land development, you're still able to take another crack at this. This is the zoning. This is just for the zoning portion of the actual land development, where you'll hear a lot more about the stormwater and all of the different aspects that have been briefly discussed.
So in that regard, retract the motion and submit revised motion to approve to the board of supervisors for that condition. My 4 dogs.
All right, so we have a motion, we have a second. All in favor?
In favor.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay.
Okay, next up is new business, and we have a zoning ordinance amendment for data centers. Did you want to discuss this, Greta?
Yes, I'll take it. Thank you. So this is the follow-up from a presentation that was made from the Board of Supervisors to authorize an ordinance for advertisement. I can go through the ordinance. I can give you a little bit of history in regards to this ordinance. And before I start with the nuts and bolts of the ordinance, I just want to set the table with a little bit of history of where and how data centers came about in Limerick Township. And I'll take you back to 2021 to 2023. As you recall, at that time, we were still like pulling out of COVID. And at that time, the use of home delivery options rather than walking into a brick and mortar store was heavily utilized. And it resulted in applications for logistics centers. And so at the time, we had two very large logistics centers applications in the township. We had one right across the street from the outlet mall, which had received a preliminary plan approval. And then we had one down on the public property, which had submitted applications to the township and were under review. But they had not received any action from the board at that time. Early 2024, we were approached for utilizing a data center use inside a warehouse. At the time, our ordinance had no definitions for the use of data center. And I had to put an opinion out that said, because our ordinance does not have that use specifically separated out, that it is considered under the umbrella of warehouse, and a data center is a specialized warehouse. And we worked very hard at that time to then correct that opinion that was put out there. By putting that opinion out there, what then literally allowed for is anywhere in the township that a warehouse existed, that a data center could actually go in there with no additional protections. So we worked pretty hard in 2024 to look at other ordinances on record of who had ordinances. Loudoun County had ordinances, had data centers for the last 20 years. And they were recommended to take a look at data center ordinances. We looked at ordinances that were in the state at the time. There weren't that many, but we relied heavily on Loudoun County's ordinance. So when we put our ordinances together in 2024, we put together what we knew at the time. We had the best information that we had at the time is how these ordinances got generated. The noise standards of that ordinance that we put together in 2024 was reviewed by a professor. I don't recall his name, but I do know that after we put together our standards, it was sent out for an authority, an acoustical expert, to do a review on that ordinance to make sure that we had our I's dotted and our T's crossed and the township was protected. And that gentleman had provided us feedback and modifications to our ordinance at that time. So that's how we got the two ordinances on the books in 2024. And then fast forward to now is this year, we got two conditional use applications filed with the township for data centers under those two ordinances. And in hearing feedback from the community in the last 5 months, and Montgomery County put out a guidance document for data centers, taking those two in concert. What we staff then is presenting, which you're going to hear tonight, is a modification to the ordinances that we have and additional standards added. So one of the tasks I was asked is, given that I know the in and out of this ordinance, where do I think the holes are in this ordinance now that it's been on the books for 2 years and we've been looking at it. So the first couple items that you're going to see are things that we came up with from staff, and then as you move through these ordinance, you're going to hear of the concerns that we're addressing that were the largest concerns that we heard from the public. So with that, I can go through the ordinance step by step, and then we can have a conversation.
So the first item that the ordinance addresses is cleanup of landmass in the LLI district. Now, as you recall, the two ordinances that we have in the books, one is for the HI district, which is the public tract down here, and the other one is for the LLI district, which is light limited industrial. And at the time we had put this ordinance in place, we had looked at this landmass here being the area for a data center, with the idea that this property line here is all owned by Constellation Energy. So it's already adjacent to a heavy industrial use. So this area was targeted. We had put together a standard that said to be in the LLI district, you had to be at least 3/4 of a mile from the intersection of Evergreen Road and West Lightcap Road. And on this map, that is the yellow line right here. So it's a tract or assemblage of parcels to create, to allow this use. What we are doing with this ordinance is we're going to cap that with, but you can't exceed 1 mile, which is that red line right there. So at this point in time, this proposed ordinance will say, here's the line in the LLI district that no portion of the tract can exceed. So basically it's taking this area and saying, this is your proposed area, but we don't want you coming down to proximity of all of these residential uses that are in the LLI district now. So this ordinance will cap that. The second item that we're modifying in the ordinance is the height. Right now, both ordinances will say that the height of a data center can be 120 feet or 3 stories, and we're dropping that down to 80 feet in both districts. Additionally, there are setbacks to existing residential uses that the ordinance has on the books currently that says that if you're within 400 feet of an existing residential use, that you have to have a setback. If there's I'm sorry, I said that backwards. If there is an existing residential use within 400 feet of the data center, then there needs to be a 400-foot setback. That setback can back up to 200 feet as long as there's acoustical provisions added to ensure that there is a sound modification. That original ordinance came from 2 places. One is we already have this ordinance on the books for other manufacturing uses adjacent to residential districts. And it's the 400-200 setback. Additionally, Loudoun County has that standard. So that was the original standard that went on the books. At this time, Montgomery County, with their March guidance document that came out, they recommended 1,000 feet setback, which could then be reduced to 500. So we're adopting the Montgomery County standard with this ordinance. The next item that we're adding is any, just to set the table, there's 3 basic definitions that we use with this ordinance. One is the definition of a data center, which is the campus that includes the data centers and all of the accessory uses. The second definition is data center accessory uses, which is all the accessory uses for the data center. And the third definition is data center equipment, or DCE. And by definition, that's all the accessory uses that make noise at their point of origin that would exceed the standards of the ordinance. And some of these items can be on the roof of a building. So we modified the definition of data center equipment to include requirements for acoustical and visual screening. We also heard concern about the low tonal noise and the request for a C-weighted decibel to be added to our noise standard. Our noise standard currently has the A-weighted decibel, but not the C-weighted decibel. Our A-weighted decibel, and I'm just going to backtrack to just tell you where we came from with our A-weighted decibel. Our A-weighted decibel is 67 dBA during daytime hours, and daytime hours are defined as 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Friday, and 57 dBA during the nighttime hours. And the nighttime hours are 8 p.m. to 7 a.m. Monday through Friday, and all day Saturday and all day Sunday. This is the same decibel standard that any other manufacturing use in the township is required to comply with, except for the Saturday and Sunday. Data center noise standard, we added Saturday and Sunday needs to be set at the nighttime hours. And the hours that we are using is the same hours that we have for every other ordinance that we have in the township. So we have ordinances that say when trash haulers can be picking up trash. And we have ordinances that says when construction operations can be, when equipment and excavators can be operating and on a construction site. So the hours that we have in this ordinance are consistent with the same hours of operation for all of our other noise producing ordinances. We added Montgomery County Model Standard Ordinance for the C-weighted, which is daytime hours for 60 dBc and nighttime hours of 50 dBc. We additionally, in the noise standard, included that the time that noise needs to be not only controlled for all the times of normal operations, but also in a time of emergency operation, which would be when all generators are running. So when they're looking at what noise, when the noise studies need to evaluate, and then when you need to show compliance, they have to show that the condition with all generators running needs to meet these standards and this limit. The other thing that we added, this noise control ordinance is more specific for data centers than for the rest of the manufacturing or industrial uses in the township, in that a noise study is required 4 times in the project. The first time is at conditional use. And that would be a hypothetical. They would be looking at hypothetical equipment. And the second time that the noise study is required is at building permit. So as they're selecting their equipment, then they have to show that they're meeting the noise standard requirements. And the third time is at startup of any of the buildings or the uses, so that when it's the first real-time assessment of the noise that may be generated from the use. And the current ordinance will say that any time after that, that's deemed by the township. But the added provision that we added was for an annual noise study to be done therever after, while the center is operational. And that is the modifications to the existing ordinance. We have also added a couple brand new sections to the ordinance, and they include cooling technology standards requiring that closed loop systems be utilized for the HVAC and the cooling systems. We also added that in regards to the cooling technology, not only do we need a closed loop system, that there would be required a wastewater disposal analysis and a drought response plan. We added also provision for decommissioning standards. Most of this was taken from Montgomery County Model Ordinance that we have in here, meaning that there needs to be a plan that's prepared by the appropriate engineer, and that there needs to be notification of when operations cease. Within a year of operations ceasing, the property needs to be decommissioned and returned to green, unless there's otherwise, unless the property owner is working with the township for an appropriate adaptive reuse of the facility. The one thing that we added that came out of the Shamokin, Pennsylvania, has a data center ordinance that required a decommissioning bond. So this bond is 110% of the assets that would be removed, and this bond would be assessed every 5 years, not only by their professionals, but the township would agree that that assessment is accurate. We added a provision for electrical rate impact standard, requiring that there be proof from the power provider that the data center use will have no impact on electrical rates in perpetuity. And we understand that that's a very simple sentence, but it's actually a very complex topic. And with this simple sentence, the point of the complex topic is that the data center needs to enter into some level of agreement with the power company on how they are actually going to comply with that requirement. And the final item that we're adding is emergency management provisions that came out of the Montgomery County Model Ordinance, requiring that there be emergency management plan prepared, requiring that there be 24/7 emergency contact information provided. Most of this information that we are adding is something that our Department of Emergency Services already does with every one of our businesses in the township. They do annual inspections. This would require annual inspections. The one thing that it does add that we don't currently do is for any emergency, for energy storage systems, which is batteries, that they be placed in accordance with the NFPA standard 855. And so what is going to happen with, and just to get a little bit into what this ordinance does and what we will continue to do is, we believe this ordinance is a start. We believe this is an emerging technology. We want to hear your comments and feedback. We know that by putting a provision in here that says that they need to that they need to comply with NFPA standard 855, that we also need to go back to the drawing table and understand how do we adopt that standard officially at the township. So we will be coming back to you later this year with an understanding of how does that standard officially get adopted so that it can be utilized prior to construction. With this standard, with this ordinance that we have here, we do want to receive feedback. We want to know what you think. We want to know what your concerns are. We want to know where it works. Where do you see us want to do additional studies? But we do want to move this ordinance forward, hearing everything you have, knowing that we're going to take that back, knowing that this is an emerging technology, and that we want to continue with having this conversation later this year again. So the floor is yours for questions and answers.
Okay.
Questions?
Does our fire company even have the capability to fight, God forbid there's a fire in a place like this? The special foams and chemicals that they would need to put the batteries out and all that stuff?
So when you go through the land development process and prior to occupancy of the building, our emergency services department has to be aware of everything that's happening and what's on board and what they need. At this point in time, I can't answer that question, but I do know there is a process in place for that. I do know my fire marshal is drilling down and has been drilling down since January on what they need, what their concerns are, and what they're recommending.
And my second question, the 80-foot building height, would that include everything that's up on the roof?
It does not. The way our ordinance is written is the building height is the height of the building. And there is a provision in the ordinance that does allow things to be on the roof. Any number of things can be on the roof in accordance with the ordinance.
It could push these up to 100, 105 feet.
It is no different than any other use in the township. So we regulate building height, and it's the structure. It's the actual, interestingly enough, it is the elevation of the building from the native land. So they can't come in and fill and then put their building on top. They actually have to go from existing grade of the original land to get the height of their building. So when we regulate building height everywhere in the township, it is from existing grade prior to fill being hauled in to the average peak of the roof line. It's a flat roof. That's an easy number. If the roof is undulating, then they have to calculate the average peak of the roof line. Our ordinance also allows for various equipment to be on the roof of any building in the township. So this would follow the standards of what everybody else would have to follow.
Brett, I just want to commend the staff here at Limerick. This has been a tough road to hoe. And I think you guys have done a fantastic job in putting this together. And Limerick Township's in good hands with people in this building. They really are. So thank you for that. And the supervisors as well. You guys have done a great job. So thank you. It hasn't been easy, but it's something we have to deal with, and we're going to do it. Having said that, I'd like to look at a couple things maybe in the future. First of all, I know one of the concerns that we've heard is light pollution. Maybe we could look at some ways to mitigate that. And I think a main one, as far as I know we're concerned, and I think the public also, is these big corporations can come in here and all of a sudden, once they're in, they can reclassify as a public utility and kind of skate the responsibility a little bit. I don't know how we can deal with that, but I'd like to maybe get them on some sort of, or maybe we can get them on some sort of commitment. I don't know if it could be 10 years or 20 years or the lifetime that they're here, to where they can't do that. So that's something I'd like that we can look at also. But I'd just like to commend the staff here at the township. You guys have done a fantastic job with this. So thank you, Brett.
You're welcome.
I have a number of comments, and the first is the most important, which is, again, to echo my colleagues in commending the township on tackling extremely difficult and probably understated politically active issue, not just for our township, but if you look at Montgomery County as a microcosm of the United States, we're going to be inundated with these requests. So I like the framework of an initial ordinance to put a cap on. So this is an outstanding initial cap on most of the bad things that we don't want to happen in the county. That said, I have other suggestions, probably framed the same way, which is for future consideration. A couple things that kind of stuck out to me. And if I get too in the weeds, the first have to do with something you.
I'll just call you when you get too in the weeds. You know, but like when I'm working on this, you're going to get a phone call.
With regards to sound, a couple things. One is that the setback alternatives are based on a plan for sound. They're not based on actual readings. And so I'm very concerned about any language that allows changes to the plan based on what it's going to sound like in the future. So that's my first concern. So in each of these sound areas, there's an alternative setback statement based on proposal for sound. I actually think those are not good to have. The second is there's an entire section in the Montgomery Data Center Guide that in total makes a little bit more sense than what we have currently. This is for the future. But the noise limits that we've set should not be the same as they are for other manufacturing. Because other manufacturing does not have, I guess you'd call it, steady tonal movement. So the DBC takes care of some of it, but standards from other areas of the country now take into account even penalties for this steady tonal sound that's defined. And again, I'm happy to provide you with references down the road, but that in a public health setting is the most controversial and potentially toxic aspect of the data set. It's not the noise you hear from a concrete plant. It's that steady hum that is possible to control. So that's that is my concern with noise. The second thing, and I think the effort to put multiple phases of sound studies is great, but what happens in non-compliance? What does the ordinance have to say? Again, future position. What do you do when they say, oops, we're off? Is there a fine? Is there a penalty? Can you shut it down? And so, these
I can
corporations
speak to
come-
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, this ordinance is gonna be an update to our zoning ordinance. Our zoning ordinance has administration and enforcement procedures, and it outlines what you can and cannot do. But just very simply, just a very quick for enforcement in general, any code, your lawn's not mowed, my neighbor's dog is barking, that sort of thing, and any code. You start with the complaint is filed, and then the complaint is investigated. And this would be zoning, and it would be a zoning officer that would do the investigation. I will let you know that a zoning officer is allowed to utilize any professional necessary in order to assist with that evaluation. And we've done that in the past. But once that violation when it is determined that there is a violation, then a notice of violation is sent. And there is a corrective time frame. They have 30 days to correct. And if they don't correct, we have a right to start fining. We can fine them $500 a day for every day. Well, wait a minute, for every day that there's a violation. And I would tell you, we do go to court for other businesses that are in violation. And when they are not complying, we just were at one where we calculated that it was $230,000, which is nothing for them. But two, this is now when it's talking about noise, I think the best thing that you're going to see is the fact that we're asking for a noise study every single year. And what that's going to do is that's going to put a professional in their book of like, oh, this is something we have to do. So at startup, it's going to be tagging who that professional is. And then it will be, then that professional has to every single year provide that report. Our professional has to review that report. So there's going to be contact from somebody on the inside between township acoustical professional and their professional. And that's going to catch things like new equipment got replaced with older equipment, or equipment got switched out. That's when your noise is going to change, is when your equipment gets switched out. But that's what it's going to do, is create a situation where there is ties to the inside.
So, Greta, thank you for the information. So I guess there are two follow-ups. One is, under whose purview can we suggest review of that penalty phase document ordinance? Because for the data center corporation, these are multi-billion-dollar conglomerates. $500 a day is nothing. So there's really no motivation for them to apply, even if they're internal or external sound engineer or any other violation of multiple aspects of the center. I'm just really concerned about that. They really have, there's not a lot of teeth to compliance. And the second is, you mentioned in passing a township acoustical consultant. Do we actually have our acoustic consultants in reviewing the ordinance?
Yes.
All right.
We will absolutely look into the enforcement, because absolutely.
Okay. So that's, I think, it for noise. The other issue that was interesting in the Montgomery County guide was the concept of a community benefits agreement. And again, not for today, but for the next draft. It was pretty blatant to the joy of our presenters for data centers that the only benefit to the township they're proposing is money. And the advantage of the community benefit agreement construct is more, or mandated uses of the money to actually support improvements in the community, or buying emergency services, or other things that the township needs. So just from a conceptual point of view, that is a really nice opportunity to hold these corporations accountable for really hard. And then my last comment, and then I'll be quiet, is that in a previous discussion of the commission, I had suggested that community health impact assessment, again, for future, that's something that would require a kind of consultant we don't currently have. But that looks at the cumulative impact of the global environment of the data center on the community, whether it's environment, waste out, climate, noise, landscape, water quality, air quality, biodiversity, and most important, public health, because we're talking about things like noise pollution, light pollution, all of that. There is a growing interest around the country in having that kind of assessment to globally understand the impact on the community. So again, Greta, I'm happy to meet with you offline to discuss some of this. Please don't take my comments as not a vote of approval for the current ordinance, because I think getting that on the books yesterday is really, really important. And again, thank you.
We wanted to open up this for conversation. We do want to know your feedback. We want to take your feedback and go back and do the studies and come back.
Great.
Absolutely.
Greg, could you explain the process if a developer could have to claim a ordinance be too punitive or restrictive? Would that knock down the whole, every item in the ordinance, or just a specific line item?
Haley, do you want to talk about that?
Sure. So, so I think it would, if there was a part of the ordinance that specifically they deemed they thought it as unreasonable, then that part would not apply. The rest of the ordinance, I think, would be still in place as long as it was reasonable and followed all of the procedures.
How long into the process does it take for them to, they would have to go to a court of appeals, see if it would be stricken down?
Yeah, they would go to the Court of Common Pleas. They would fight the ordinance, and if so, then that restriction. So, if for example, a restriction said, the setback is 1,000 feet, someone challenged it to say it's unreasonable. It's not like, oh, other places it's been reasonable at 500 feet, now it's 500 feet. There would just be no stand if there wasn't something ordinance that addressed.
So if we make things too strict, it could open us up to no protections
For
specific like setbacks.
So if a setback was made that made it to where use could not actually happen, like if you made a setback, I don't know the exact numbers, but if you said it has to be 5,000 feet from a residential lot, and there is nowhere in the township that it can be 5,000 feet, then you've effectively said that you can't have those here, and it's impermissible to do that, and that would mean that they could be, arguably anywhere and at a much smaller setback from residential, if it's not supported by either a study showing what is reasonable or other, typically we look to other municipalities or other places that have set those. Here, I think Greta has relied heavily on the county, which did some of those studies and created, their guidance on that. But of course, the county's recommendation doesn't take into consideration every different place in Pennsylvania or specifically Montgomery County that, picks these zoning districts and has to decide, how close a place could actually reasonably be from residential. So long-winded.
But it makes sense, but we have to be cognizant that we have to thread the needle, because if not, we could expose ourselves to more harm than good by these ordinances.
Right.
So let me ask a follow-up again on the legal issue. It's a really good question. Does the Court of Appeals have the opportunity to strike a particular part of an ordinance, or is it an all or none decision to approve or disapprove a whole ordinance?
It can strike a particular portion.
And so, I haven't done the math, but it seems like at least 90% of what's in here is in the Montgomery guide. So I'm not. I understand operating bill from a position of fear, but if we get overly fearful, the whole thing will disappear and we'll end up with our data centers that have no guidance. So I think unless there's something egregious in the ordinance as written, and I'm not an expert, but I didn't see anything that was like so far outside of the Montgomery County data center guide or what's standard in other places in the country. I would still say that approval is the better part.
Absolutely, for the one that we have written. My concern is for ordinances going forward.
That's a good question.
Okay, one of my concerns has been diesel generators because they're so loud, so much noise pollution. Is there something for the next version that we could do to limit it to natural gas or some other sorts of non-coal, non-petroleum energy source?
Yes, we can. Non-coal and what was your next?
Non-petroleum.
Non-petroleum. Yes, absolutely. We'll look into it.
That's really an excellent question, actually, and aligns pretty well with what's in the county guidance. We have a section, I think it's called, there's one on energy backup, on thermal energy that look at non-fossil fuel sources. It's something we should have.
Yeah, I'm sure we have some public comments here. If everybody could make their way to the microphone and just announce their name, location. We're not gonna run a clock, man. I don't know if we're prepared for that. Have that up there. Do we have it up there for 2 minutes?
Give me just a minute.
Hello, my name is Jack. Hold on 1 second, sir. And then during the clock, if anybody wants a response, it would count against your time. So it's probably in your best interest is to get everything off your chest, whatever you want to say during the time frame. And then anybody could respond if they want to after your time's up.
I'm going to use my power on that.
Okay.
Yeah, we're not holding anything else.
Thank you. Okay. My name is Jack Mellon. I'm over 60 years resident of Limerick Township. I think we have data centers in the wrong zoning. You have it in light industrial. Now, keep in mind, the data centers draw enough power to power 600,000 homes. That doesn't sound like light industrial to me. I think you have it in the wrong section. That's all.
Can I just ask one question? Just because I truly don't understand. When you all are, my name is Christy Damasco, I live in Linfield. Oh, sorry, I appreciate the township revising the data center ordinances. The conditions in these ordinances should be met by developers if they want to do business here, while keeping in mind the community's health and safety the priority. Changes that I would like to see in these ordinance amendments are increased setbacks from residential homes, daycares, and schools to 2,500 feet from the property line of a residence and property line of the land for the data center. Air and noise are harder to control, but distance is the most important and straightforward control to be put in place. With 2 designated data center sites, they're each almost 200 acres. If these ever applied to them, that would not stop them from building. It would just force them to alter their plans slightly while still being hyperscale. Please do not cater to the developers and their ability to maximize their profit over our residents' health, safety, and peace. Maximum height, could you match it to be the 60-foot height limit that applies to all of your projects in Limerick, and that height should include all structures on the roof. Noise from the operations, including cooling units and generators, should not exceed 45 dBA or 60 dBc at the property line, and then not exceed 40 dBA at other times. There was minimal things about water in this ordinance. If it's connected to public water supplies, the applicant shall include at the time of application, documentation of available capacity. No water from wells is permitted. And a detailed estimate of daily and annual water use should also be submitted. And also data centers shall use exclusively 100% dry air-cooled closed loop systems. Specifically, the routine consumption or evaporation of public water for cooling is strictly prohibited. And I just wanted to add, if there could be something in there about gas or coal power plants or mini nuclear generators, that must be exempt from accessory use and have a separate application completely altogether. And the question that I just wanted to ask was, when you all are saying it for future iterations, does that mean that the draft that you did, that's what we're working with and this doesn't matter? Or does, like, that's what I don't understand.
It all matters. It all matters. So we believe that this draft is better than what we have, and we want to continually make it better. But if we debate the draft,
right,
then we don't get anything adopted.
But so the comments though that the board members made tonight will not be added to this?
They will get studied. What we're doing is taking comment, we're taking feedback to study all the concerns that are raised to bring back another ordinance.
And that's the one that then goes to the Board of Supervisors.
This is an iterative process.
Okay.
So this is an emerging technology.
Right.
So we're going to continue. We're going to continue to revise and modify as we continue to study and drill down.
But if I can just jump in, the idea is there will be multiple ordinance updates. So this is a draft that will hopefully, if once approved, if a developer tries to put in an application, then we have stricter standards for that. But if the concern is, if we try to get it exactly perfect with this emerging technology, as Greta was saying, then this is going to take years. It's going to take a long time, and we're not going to have an updated ordinance that is protecting residents and addressing these concerns as we go. So this is a first attempt to address, as Greta had mentioned in her summary, the things that were deemed, mentioned many times at the public meetings, and all of these concerns that have been addressed are going to hopefully be in the next attempt to revise this to keep making as strong an ordinance as possible for.
Okay, yeah, because just every really good points were brought up, especially the fines.
We agree.
Joanne Konchak, Limerick resident. Thank you, Greta, and all for your thought and very much effort put into this. The amending this ordinance. For the record, here are more specific changes needed. First, regarding industrial diesel generators and air pollution. The ordinance ignores toxic air emissions, soot and nitrogen oxides blasted into our air during regular testing, as well as the risk of fuel leaks into our local groundwater. To fix this, mandate that all emergency generators meet strict EPA Tier 4 final emission standards using modern catalytic scrubbers. Limit testing to a strict window like 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. on a weekday, and ban testing entirely on poor air quality days. Next, regarding wastewater and system flushes, the township is preparing to accept millions of gallons of chemical heavy industrial wastewater directly into our public municipal sewer treatment system. To fix this, set a strict daily upper limit on industrial wastewater discharge and require the developer to build and fund an on-site pretreatment facility to completely clean the water before it ever touches the township sewer lines. And lastly, regarding the drought response paper plan, which seems very relevant right now with our kind of drought. A paper plan does not stop a facility from drawing public water during a severe shortage if its infrastructure requires constant flow to prevent equipment damage. It lacks automatic curtailment triggers or shutdowns. To fix this, mandate specific operational triggers, dictate that upon drought warning or emergency declaration by DEP, that facility must automatically reduce water intake by specified percentages or shift completely to a backup dry cooling, prioritizing residential availability. And that's all for now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Terry Arthur. I was here for the Board of Supervisors meeting a couple weeks ago. Thank you, Greta and team. I appreciate you continually looking to upgrade and change and make these amendments and try to make better safeguards. I didn't quite understand the process of why didn't we do this, 2 years ago with these standards, and we probably wouldn't be sitting here, but I know it's a work in progress. I think it was recommended then at the Board of Supervisors meeting that those setbacks go to 1,500 and 1,000 feet. I think I stand, if we have to have setbacks, I even propose these, I think that's a better setback. The noise study, is that going to be done by an independent firm, not by the customer, not their people? It needs to be done by an independent person, the annual noise study going forward.
The noise study currently, the noise studies that are in the books currently would be their acoustical expert and then reviewed by the township's acoustical expert.
Okay.
Both need to agree.
Okay, we need to be on the same page.
Yes.
Okay, and then I agree, public health study assessment is not being discussed at all in general. Specific individual things, but not combined. And then finally is there's been no discussion of the disposal of used equipment. So they use up servers. We all know what we have today is our servers aren't any use, and you guys make us bring our computer equipment to specific recycling. What are they going to do? So where is that all going to go? And finally, I think there wasn't the decommissioning. There was not only a fund, like you were going to mandate they had to put it back to green.
That's what this current ordinance
So
proposes.
okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
The assistant, Limerick Township resident. First of all, thank you. I'll keep my thing short so I can get through this, but I appreciate it. As many of you probably know, the Pennsylvania House recently passed a bill that could let Harrisburg override local data center standards. So the window for getting strong local provisions is closing. The setbacks, the 1,000-foot standard should be increased to at least 1,500 feet. Schools and daycare should be explicitly included, and the 500-foot alternative should be eliminated. Troup County, Georgia, and Jonesboro, Tennessee both require 1,500 feet. For generators, the draft says nothing about diesel emissions, testing hours, or fuel storage. Generator testing should be restricted to daytime windows and banned entirely on poor air quality days. All units should meet EPA tier 4 standards. For the electrical rate provision is unenforceable. No utility can legally guarantee rates in perpetuity. Limerick's power infrastructure and water supply make us a prime target. I'd ask the board to require any applicant to demonstrate a full independent power supply that doesn't draw from the local grid, and getting approved to connect to the regional power grid can take a lot of time and money. So require proof that the applicant has actually secured it before we schedule a hearing. Otherwise, we're spending township time on projects that we never be able to power on. There's no fiscal impact analysis required anywhere in the ordinance. So a developer will show the board a tax revenue number. That's not the same as what the township will actually net after the road damage, water consumption, and emergency services costs are factored in. So the study should be required for any approval. The WHO recommends below 45 decibels for residential areas. The standard decibel measurements are actually designed to undercount low frequency sound, which is what data centers produce. Octave band limits close that gap by measuring the specific frequencies that matter. For non-compliance, I think we all know the $500 is not great for these people, or it's going to save them money in the long run. So anything we can do on that. On chemicals, there's nothing about liquid cooling agents and PFAS. So a leak contaminates soil and groundwater. Full chemical disclosure and PFAS cooling agents should provide. Oh, I thought that would be a leak. I'm so sorry. Thank you. Again.
Hi, my name is Carol Lehman, and I'm a Limerick resident, where my family and I keep honeybees, raise livestock, and grow medicinal herbs. And I really appreciate the township and everybody coming out tonight to work to strengthen the data center regulations. This is a really important step. And a lot of what I'm going to say, luckily, has already been said. But as someone who's livelihood depends on clean air and clean water and a stable environment, I need to clearly say and reiterate that these ordinances do not go far enough to protect residents, farms, and ecosystems. The noise limits in this ordinance, the 67 decibels during the day and the 57 at night, like was stated, are extremely high for constant noise. Research shows that chronic noise at these levels disrupts pollinators and wildlife, stresses livestock, and affects human sleep and cardiovascular health. These limits are written around what data centers can achieve and not what communities need. Second, the ordinance allows water cool systems as long as there's a closed loop, but it sets no cap on total water withdrawal, no independent verification of long-term supply, and no limits on wastewater volume. For a township already facing drought declarations, this is a major gap. And third, the ordinance does not meaningfully regulate diesel generator emissions, which are known to threaten air quality, soil health, and pollinator health. Testing cycles alone can release large amounts of particulate matter. I respectfully ask the board to continue strengthening these protections. If we're going to allow data centers in Limerick, which I vehemently disagree with, the standard must be written for the health of the community, not the convenience of the industry. As a beekeeper and a regenerative farmer, I rely on clean water, clean air, and a stable soundscape. These ordinances acknowledge the risks, but they do not meaningfully prevent them. I urge the board to strengthen these standards. The protections must match the scale of environmental risk. Thank you.
Good evening. Mike McGuire, so a resident here in Limerick. I don't have a lot of stuff written ahead of time, just some notes I took while everybody spoke this evening. So a couple of questions came up, by the way. I love everything you had to say. $500 a day. I think it's simple to say you're in compliance or you shut it off. That will cost them something way more than how we might benefit $500 a day. And maybe it brings them into compliance. And I think that's true for every other one of these things that all these good people have brought up, whether it's the water or the diesel fume discharge or the noise. You're in compliance or you shut it down. I think it's reasonable to put that into the ordinance. There was a question about emergency services. I think it's also reasonable to say this is what we, as we exist right now, can accommodate. If we need more than that to deal with a potential fire at your facility, then you are responsible for that. You are responsible for your own fire services or for upgrading ours, and not at our cost, but at theirs. The number of personnel, the equipment, everything should be their responsibility. At least paying for it. That's all.
Hi, my name is Tammy Ripto, and I live with my family also on a farm, and much of what we are hoping for has been addressed. Thank you so much for the thought you put into this. I'm shaking because I know what happened when we moved here and they promised rates would never go up from this nuclear power plant. Guess what happened to my father's heating bill every winter? $700 on a fixed income. So now we're adding on taxes for roads, taxes for water, taxes for EMS. These are things that we're not talking about here. Where are the bonds? More bonds. Thank you. It was great to hear a bond for decommissioning. The bonds for the roads. Do you know what it weighs to bring in 308 diesel generators? 80,000 pounds each. Do you think our roads built for tractors can handle that? And then who pays for it when they're done building? Our taxes go up. So I'd like to see more bonds. I'd love to see it not at all, but I'd love to see this done sustainably with forethought. More forethought. You've done a lot. It's not to degrade anything you've done. The decommissioning plan, the EMS, bonds for that, bonds for the road, and then more independent verification. because we know what's happening over the country with the water use and the emissions. And it's not being independently verified. The centers are so large, it's being overlooked. So I would like to see more independent verification. And then thank you for limiting the area of opportunity for these data centers. I'd like to take that further because these are massive windowless buildings that compare nothing to housing, real estate, and offices that can actually benefit our community. So can we limit this and prohibit it from historic districts, public parks, wetlands, protected watersheds, agricultural preservation districts, obviously residential zoning, environmentally sensitive areas, and potential targets of geopolitical attacks. And also on the note of transparency, I think we deserve to know who's putting what in our community. And I'd like to see more on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just FYI, I have your timer back on while the laptop is.
Yeah. Too much to say. Yeah, my name's Andrew Piasecki. I live directly adjacent to the proposed site at next to the outlet mall over there. And I have major concerns, mostly just with my family and their health, safety, and well-being. I'm worried about the air pollution, contaminating our wells, the noise. I believe daytime decibel readings are 67 decibels and nighttime are 57 decibels. I believe in the previous ordinance, it was 50 decibels at nighttime and 65 decibels in the daytime. So it seems like we increased just over the course of 2 years. So I think we're going in the wrong direction on noise. It seems like you have a way to really enforce the code, it seems like, with a $500 day fine. So the other thing is with the heat. These things generate enormous amounts of heat, and I don't see any protections in the current ordinance. I have a field, I plant hay to feed animals. I'm concerned about, the crop, and what the heat's going to do to that and the way that I use my property. So, overall, I'm completely against the data center and just want it to go away. So, thank you.
I'm really struggling not to be emotional. Martha Bell with Limerick Resident. First of all, kudos to you guys, the Planning Commission. I thought your meeting last time was excellent, and again tonight. Thank you to Greta and the team. Thank you to the Board of Supervisors for being more open with the communities these last two meetings. I greatly appreciate it. I've been trying to keep open on my phone the 18 conditional uses that were suggested by the Planning Commission last time around. There are a couple things that come to my attention are that we are hoping that they will use a closed loop system. We are hoping that they use natural gas instead of diesel generators. That indicates to me that there's no real plan in place. There's no real actual plan submitted at this point in time. And if I would ask respectfully that if whoever they are, submit a more specific plan, that it be considered a new plan and be held to the conditions that you guys are updating the ordinance with tonight, or soon, hopefully soon. The other two things that are capturing my attention, because I've been trying to find out from the PUC, or actually from the DEP, there is a chapter 105 water permit, I think it's called. I'm not exactly sure what it's called, that has been applied for this massive transmission line that's covering 37 commercial and private properties that's crossing Chester and Montgomery County in the Schuylkill River, bypassing the nuclear power plant and connecting to a substation in Limerick. I don't know if that's exactly true, but I was told a while ago that there would be a public meeting, and so far nothing, silence, nothing's been scheduled. So I would hope that you guys would apply, look into that. And also with regards, as other people have mentioned, recently we heard from, or I, read something from the water company about their concern about upgrading the infrastructure to help with PFAS and all those other chemicals that are used in cooling systems. This is something that our public water system is concerned with. And I think we need answers from the people that are involved in these data center proposals as to what exactly is going to go into our sewer system. If the public sewer system is already concerned with this, I think we should be too. And I'm sorry for my emotion. I am very concerned about these projects.
Darren Garvey, Limerick resident. Some concerns I have is we're talking about code and ordinances on buildings that are set in place. This is an unprecedented sized building. We're not calculating the robust size of this building, the footprint that it's going to take up. I think ordinances should be applied based on that footprint and robust for that reason. Drought conditions, who becomes a priority? The data center or the residents? That's a huge concern. I think a panel of specialists should be applied to each individual study, not just one or a township or somebody that they pull out of the wherever you may pull these specialists from. I think it should be a panel, so there should be a relatively unbiased panel. Fire emergency response and air contamination study and a robust plan should be set in place in the event there was a fire. These are wires, these are computers, these are things that if there were a fire, this is going to contaminate our air, this is going to potentially contaminate the soil. This is a plan that needs to be set in place. And I think there should be a 3-strike violation protocol. The $500, we all know that that's just laughter. I mean, that's just, they'll pay that. I think there should be steps. After the third time, it should be a 30-day shutdown period until they become compliant. And that compliance should be a 3-study panel. Once they're in compliance, then they can start the business back up. Although I'm against it completely, but I think these should be applied and visited in these ordinances when reviewed. Thank you.
Hi. Every time. Hi, everybody. Debbie Trunk, resident. I won't basically say that I have the same concerns as everybody. I think we all obviously know that. And Martha, for once, I'm not the emotional one. We all keep saying that they're meeting the ordinances that we currently have in place. And I realize that there's a legal reason that we have to say that. But we're in unprecedented times. None of this is anything that we've had to deal with. If the shopping mall burns to the ground, it's not going to have the same environmental, respiratory, wildlife event and impact that it would have that the data center with all of its chemicals and everything would have. We already have the nuclear power plant. It was brought up before that we should, it was suggested that they should consider, not told, the people who live here, that they should consider strongly switching over to gas generators versus diesel. Anybody knows anything about diesel? It's so much worse for the respiratory system. And my biggest concern is sound barriers can only go so high. Sound, the last time I checked, I worked for an audiologist, sound does not stop where the wall is. We all have kids, we have grandkids. Nothing like sitting in the backyard and looking out and seeing how beautiful this area is. We live here for a reason. Whoever is building this thing that none of us are allowed to know about, they'll never live here. We have a right to say what belongs here. And for anyone who's ever worked in the educational, medical field, giving them a deadline. Once a year, we'll check this out. Even if we do it 4 times a year, where we check the sound and the emissions, they know it's coming. To give them, it should be random. To give them permission to just hide the bodies, can't happen, guys. We have to protect our own. You, sir?
Coming in here. I appreciate all of you.
Good evening. My name is Stephen Burnham from Saratoga. I would hope and ask that you would have independent third-party testing for anything that has to be tested. So had that kind of blind, unbiased part of it. When it comes down to the maximum feet for the building, what is the overall max absolute of building plus equipment? Because you said you can go up to 80 foot on the building, but then you can throw other equipment on top of it. But the airport established 120 foot maximum height, I believe. So with that said, what is the absolute maximum of building plus equipment on top?
We don't know. We don't have an actual application in front of us. We know what the maximum building height is, 80 feet. What Greta has alluded for, that mechanical equipment goes on top, along with any required buffering and screening.
Yes.
The 120 right now stands as this is the maximum set by the FAA, not the airport. That's all I can say.
More or less
right
what
now.
I'm alluding to. If there's more than 40 foot worth of vertical height of equipment and you exceed 120, does that become an issue? Is there a maximum cap of 120?
120, that goes without saying. The FAA had it set. A previous application already had a determination made for 120. So we know 120 is the max, not by the township, by the FAA.
Roger that. All right, when it comes down to sound, when you said some professor did the sound study, do you know if ultrasound was considered in that?
The review of our ordinance was reviewed by an acoustical expert.
Do you know if ultrasound was taken in consider of his review of the sound? No, normally the reason I ask, OSHA is strictly dictated off decibel readings. The persistent low hum that you're speaking of is actually an ultrasound, which is 20 hertz and below, which is unregisterable by human hearing, but it will vibrate everything inside you. It travels tremendously further than what the decibel rating is because of the wavelength of it. So the ratings of how far you believe sound will reach out and touch is completely different when you compare the ultrasound hertz rating when you look at the decibel rating. But via OSHA standards, it's strictly from decibel. And I'm pretty sure the last time it was ever updated was sometime in the 80s. So it's not like it's even that up to modern science or standard. Is there any baseline readings going on now before anything is put in to understand what the general sound levels are? So when these things do come in, then you have a tangible, provable of what has changed in the area, what they have actually done, instead of then just seeing a reading and trying to figure out, oh, I guess it's okay. But to actually know what has changed when they
We don't know that. As part of the study, they have to do various.
Well, no, I'm talking about with, and like you guys doing just a baseline test, okay?
No.
Is there any enforceable language, true forcible language when something is damaged? And then with that, like they're saying, having bonds put in for if everyone's wells starts drawing all the mud and then everyone's got to drill their wells X amount of 100 feet deeper to get clean water, potentially clean water. But then that's a $30,000, I'm just going to say a $30,000 cost for every house that's well gets busted. Now they got replaced. Is there any bonds for if they break the community in these ways?
We can't answer these questions. We're just taking public comments. Any questions?
Well,
we're making notes.
These are meant to be suggestions. They're asked as questions because it's a question I have, but I understand you not necessarily what it is. The question is meant to elicit well, maybe this is something we should put in. This is something we should look at.
We're making notes of this from all the comments. Thank you.
Hi, Linda Bowles, Linfield. Not going to reiterate what everybody else said tonight, right? We all know where we all stand. I am going to start out by saying I'm totally against these data centers. They don't belong in communities.
One thing I have not heard is when our property values go down due to these data centers. Again, let's get a bond in play. Right? Let the data centers, if I want to sell my house, make them pay me what I'm gonna lose if my property value goes down. Also, what he was just saying about water, when our wells dry up. Akron Township's total water draws for all component centers usage demand. Right? Yes. So that's my concern. The water.
No, can I make another question?
It's not my fault, I'm gonna go to the chair.
Just one.
Do we got any other, look, guys, everybody else made their comments? All right, one last comment, sir.
Real quick.
Okay.
I know we're talking about how high a building can go. Can they go down? And that should be in the ordinance.
Do we have any additional commission comments?
No, we just appreciate your input, really do. Thank you. This is tough for everybody. And we want you to know we are doing our best, everyone here for the township. So thank you for your input tonight. We appreciate it. Thank you.
One comment and a couple of procedural questions. Just for Greta, someone mentioned thermal impact. Just to note, there is in Montgomery County Data Center Guide a section on thermal impacts, which I think is extremely well written for consideration for the future. Question on process. Let's say this goes to the board and a commission. We say go forward, have an ordinance. Is that does that become an active ordinance immediately after the board meeting? Okay, so then, and that's, I should probably say it.
Yes, that does become effective.
Okay. Let's say that we, on the other hand, suggest revision to the current ordinance. How does that extend the whole process of approval ultimately by the Board of Supervisors? So we say, nah, go back and fix this. How much delay does that?
You go back and fix this one
This
now.
ordinance.
So it would delay it till they see it and they pass it. I mean, it's not an effective ordinance until, like, these proposals, the ordinance that's currently passed is in effect until a new ordinance is passed. So if there were any future applications for a data center, those are under the ordinance that exists now. If a new one is passed, it will be under that ordinance.
Let's get a different question. So if it goes back to Greta for revision, how long does that then take to revise? Does it go back to the planning? Does it go back to the board? Does it go back for another public hearing?
Under the MPC, the ordinance is required to be advertised for 30 days and receive comment. If there's recommendation or proposal to amend the ordinance based on comment, you amend the ordinance and then you put it back out for advertisement for another 30 days. And then you receive comments. So what we're doing is taking your comment, putting in the next ordinance.
Someone had an interesting question from the public about, I guess what I would call the potential for retroactivity. I'm assuming legally there's no way for a new ordinance that's put in effect on doing any way to apply to an applicant currently as a planning commission submission for.
No.
All right, last question. Who owns the open enforcement or the sort of fines and penalties ordinance, Greta, that you mentioned? How would that, who would own revising or approving that?
It's in the zoning ordinance, and the zoning ordinance has provisions that are required under the MPC.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to, I recommend the BOS consider the ordinance as presented.
A second.
I'd like to suggest modification to that, if I may, but I don't know if you need to bring that specific to the first process.
You. It may make sense. But you can proceed.
Yeah, I
If
mean,
you
if you want to
proceed and you
deliberate, Bruce, my concern is if we modify this, we're going to expose for another 30 days.
I'm not proposing a
At-
modification.
At least.
I'm proposing the following. You let me know what you think.
Sure.
So my motion modification would be to recommend the board consider the ordinance as presented with a condition that a second draft be presented to the commission in 4 months. So in other words, put some teeth in the planning commission. I don't know if that's permissible.
You can recommend that, but there would be no way to enforce them providing that if it's adopted and it didn't happen before. There's no way. But you can make that, recommendation that you would like to see in that one.
I would like to add that recommendation to the motion.
Greta, do you think that time frame is a possibility? 4 months?
4 months. I would say if that's the recommendation of the planning commission and the board agrees that the staff will do everything that we can in order to make that happen.
Realizing that.
I think I'm gonna defer to the township manager on this. But as initially was referred to, that the township is gonna wait for additional information as it comes in, review it, study it out, understand it. So putting a 4 months out is viable, but I'm gonna defer to the township manager.
So just to reiterate a little bit, Robert's rule, again, the board has a specific ordinance that they're asking the planning commission to consider. There was a motion on the table to consider that ordinance. So Bruce has asked for that motion to be amended. I believe the way that Robert's rule is, you would then make that a motion and ask for that motion. If that motion fails, then you're back to the original motion. So just if you could maybe process that formally, just to make sure it's proper under Robert's rule. So you made a motion, someone asked for amendments, vote on that, come back. I will tell you that this ordinance as written right now is very important to this board and this community to move that forward. The board is very concerned about any delay on that. So we hear all the comments from everybody. There is a lot on our plate, and Greta is being kind and saying 4 months. If we go back for an amendment, Greta and her department, everybody else, we have 2 data center projects running. We have a comprehensive plan study that's going to start. We are starting the budget season. I have to allocate staff time. I'm not seeing another budget amendment coming back at least till the end of the year. I'm just saying, because I have to allocate staff. 4 months, I have to disagree with Greta. We only have so much staff time to process this. What you're asking for is going to require very specific studies. We have to have standards in our ordinances to put them in there. And we're going to have to get experts. We're going to have to bring them in. We're going to have to hire them. There's going to be budget amendments to that the board's going to have to approve. I'm just telling you, I'm estimating it's not going to be till the end of the year until we can bring something back. So we're respectfully asking that you vote on the ordinance as presented, right?
So Ken, thank you. I recognize that. And again, to your point, it is a recommendation. The planning commission, as far as I know, doesn't have a way to mandate that you come back in 4 months. Ultimately, it's up to the supervisors, I believe, to either accommodate or not accommodate recognition from a planning commission. I'm in no way questioning the general consensus to get this ordinance that's written approved yesterday. So the motion is, again, consider the ordinance as presented with a recommendation for a follow-up for us. But that's open.
How's everyone else feel about that?
I would prefer that we just move ahead with the ordinance as written, with the understanding that the supervisors have heard this, and the township staff have heard the feedback, and we'll work on that for another future amendment to this. But I think we should keep this moving so that we at least have something in place for any, new proposals that come soon.
So just procedurally, since there was a motion, we should see if there was a second for that motion,
For Bruce's motion?
for Bruce's motion. Is there a second? Okay, so then that motion fails and the original motion is before the.
All in favor?
In favor.
Aye.
Thank you.
I have one last opportunity for any public comment.
I just want one thing. I know Katie Muth is putting in legislation to put the brakes on these for 3 years so that you can come up with a plan with moving these data centers forward. Why are we not putting the brakes on?
We can at this level. Like if Senator Muth could get it through, it'd be.
I mean, you're sitting
Great,
here, you want to approve something, but we don't know who this is that wants to build these things, and you're trying to put them in our backyard. Take the time, break it for 3 years and get it right.
I mean, it sounds like a great idea, but it's just not legally feasible, unfortunately.
I need to say thank you. I don't know your name. Is it Bruce? You, in all the meetings, I've been Board of Supervisor meetings, but planning commission meetings now appear on my calendar regularly. You, not that I'm being disrespectful to anybody else, but sir, you speak up, I feel like, for us. And you bring valid points. And as far as the business manager, respectfully, I'm sorry you have a busy schedule, but this is our life. So, putting his plan out there and saying, maybe put a time frame, and you standing here saying, well, maybe by the end of the year, kind of disrespectful to the residents of your township. Thanks.
Rick Fiddler, Limerick resident, and this is obviously to the Planning Commission and to the Board of Supervisors. I know you're doing the best you can possibly do. This is a very difficult process. You're legally bound by the laws of Pennsylvania, and you have to do things in a certain way. And there are a lot of public comments, and I understand that, and a lot of the public wishes that we didn't have to deal with this. We do. We don't have a choice in the matter. You are doing the best you can for the community. I know that. I hope that people recognize that. And the fact that you're moving this along will help if another project comes along. You're making something better that we started with a couple of years ago that has holes in it that we recognize now. We need to get those holes filled. There's a lot more that needs to be done that can be done. It can't all be done immediately. We have to look at it in phases. We have to basically take things as they come. We wish that everything could happen immediately. It can't. I've been through this too much. I've seen it way too much. I've got history of this. I know how it works. And I know that everyone here is doing the best they can do. And I know the public wishes we didn't have to accept this. We do. Right now, it's very early in the process. What is before the board is one conditional use. Conditional use is a very early process. All it means is they have to prove that they can actually put it there. It's not the end of the process by any stretch. They have to go through a whole land development process. This could take 4 or 5 years before it comes to fruition. A lot of people think that when East Vincent denied the Pennhurst plan, that that one is done. I hate to tell you, it ain't done. Because that developer is gonna go to court and they have the opportunity to overturn it. And they may get something far worse than what the applicants want here in Limerick. Because one of the things that a conditional use means is that the Board of Supervisors can put conditions on any approval. If they go to court and the court says, well, that denial wasn't any good, there aren't any conditions. East Vincent could get something much worse than what they started with. So the process that's going on here is as legal as it possibly can be. It is valid. Everyone is doing the best they can. And we all need to understand that. We don't want this here. We don't have a lot of choice under state law. The township has to organize and has to run under state law. They have no other choice. They have no options. So everything that's being done is being done in the right manner. So thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Rick.
Just one little thing that I forgot to bring up. In regards to the worry about setting standards that would be overbearing, that then they would use to try to pigeonhole everyone out of the process of protecting this area. Something was said to me, y'all are going to figure out how true this is, but if you set a 5,000 foot standard and it's unmeetable just because you can't physically fit it, I agree. You can't do anything like that. But they're coming asking to build a data center. They are asking for a certain scale up of a data center. It is, I believe, y'all right to decide how big you let them go. You can keep their energy draw down by dictating how large of a campus they can put in here, how much water draw, but it can still be a data center. You're not denying them the right of building a data center. You're denying them their over gross wants to be able to plunk something down that detrimental to the area. So I believe that may be the protection where you can put teeth, protect the standard, and not have it, oh, well, you know, these guys they're not letting us build it. No, we'll let you build a data center, just not the monstrosity that you want. That's all.
Any additional public comment? Any additional board comments? Okay. The next planning commission meeting is going to be July 9th at 7 p.m. right here. I get a motion to adjourn.
Motion.